Welcome to Age Hackers, powered by Gladden Longevity with Dr. Jeffrey Gladden, where our passion is to help you live young for a lifetime. On this show, we want to help you optimize your longevity, health, and human performance with impactful and actionable information by answering 3 questions. How good can we be? How do we make 100 the new 30? And how do we live well beyond 120? I'm Steve Reiter, and Dr. Gladden, we just got done with Frank Davis from Optivita Health, and it was a good conversation. The guy's 76 and he's crushing it.
Yeah, no, this was a great conversation, inspiring on many levels, quite honestly. But, the thing that I really loved about this conversation is that he's figured out a way for people to actually eat a very highly nutrient-dense diet without having to source $250 worth of organic produce every day to kind of get all the stuff that you would need to actually do that. And, I don't know if the audience feels the same frustration that I felt, is that, you want to eat well, but it's very difficult to eat well. How do you know what you're getting? Even when you buy organic, and, we know that the soil concentration, the transportation times, there's loss of nutrient density all the time. And so what we're going to talk about in this show is going to show you a solution for that I think is really quite astounding. So I'm excited for you to hear this. Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the Age Hackers podcast, powered by Gladden Longevity. I'm your host, Dr. Jeffrey Gladden, and I'm here with my compatriot, Steve Reiter. Steve, how you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing really good, Dr. Gladden. How was your July 4th weekend?
It was great. It was excellent. I crushed a nice mountain bike ride yesterday, which felt really good. I've been working on the Vasper here 3 days a week religiously, and oh man, I tell you, it's a transformative piece of equipment. I had like a completely different set of legs than I did a month ago. I love to get back in sync. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. You climb stuff that before was daunting. Now it's like, no, okay, let's do more of this. So it's really super fun to keep getting stronger and stronger. So how about you? What were you up to?
Just a lot of time hanging out with my boys, and did some cleaning around the house. Did get outside, get some nice hikes in, and enjoyed being outside in Colorado. But lots of hanging out with the boys and cleaning.
I am going to be coming to see you. You don't know this yet, but I'm actually, the week of August 7th. I'll be recording my audiobook there at a studio just north of Colorado Springs for a week, apparently. It's going to take a week to record it. Yeah, so anyway, I'll be hanging out in your neighborhood. Maybe we can get together.
Oh, heck yeah. I'm looking forward to that. Big time.
Yeah. In the meantime, we have a really interesting guest with us today, a guy by the name of Frank Davis, who we were just chatting with before we launched the show here. And Frank has an interesting story, and he's done something that's kind of near and dear to my heart, which is to bring nutrient-dense foods and make them available to people. We'll talk to you a little bit about how he does that. But Frank, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Excited to talk about what I love.
Yeah. So I want to start with this. So Frank, what was your birth year? When were you born?
1946.
Okay, 1946. Great. So I was born in 54. You were born in 46. So you are quite active from what I understand. You're a skier, a biker. Tell us a little bit about your activity levels at this point.
Well, I've never met a sport I don't enjoy. And I call myself, I don't necessarily excel in any single one of them, but I'm better than average in all of them. I had to wait till I was a senior citizen to really excel, because I played in the World Senior Games for 26 years. I've done everything from track, biking, mountain biking, road biking, racquetball, basketball. Played basketball forever. I'm not what people would look at and say, here's a basketball player. I'm 5'6.5". But, interestingly,
Spud Webb.
Huh? Yeah.
Spud Webb.
Interestingly enough, when I just before I turned 70, I was playing in what's called the MBA, the Masters Basketball Association National Championship in Florida. And the team that won was an all black athletes. Every one of them had played professional ball, NBA and ABA, Puerto Rican, European, whatever. I end up as the MVP of the tournament on the all tournament team.
Oh my gosh!
So, and the reason, candidly, because they had the judges were the scorekeepers and the refs. And one of the
and they were
one of the refs.
They were your friends or what?
No, I didn't know any of them. They just said I was like the ever ready bunny. I mean, I have the stamina and the energy of somebody half my age, and I could run circles around those guys. They're great half court players, but they couldn't run the court, and they couldn't keep up with me. And so I was so yes, I'm still love it. You were talking about mountain biking. I mountain bike. I road bike. I do that 3 times a week. I play racquetball 3 times a week. So I keep active.
Yeah. Now this is great. So typically somebody like yourself would have some sort of history of injuries and things like that they've had to overcome in the process. Or have you managed to dodge most of those bullets, or how's that worked out for you?
Well, you're right on. Interestingly enough, a year and a half ago, mountain biking, I did what you said. You crushed a mountain bike ride. Well, there's a fairly technical ride in southern Utah that I went on, and I crushed it. I'm in the parking lot. I couldn't get out of my clips, and I went over like timber and tore my rotator cuff. And so I'm bleeding. I'm injured. I had to ride 5 miles back to get to.
I know.
But anyway, that put me out of commission for almost 9 months. But, and I've had I've had the meniscus tear playing racquetball, just twisting and stuff. But I get over them and I get back, and I'm doing mountain biking. I played racquetball this morning for 2 hours, so I'm back at it.
Yeah, I think this is the key. I think the key is to get back. I think a lot of people give up, right? Yeah. They have the injury. It's like, okay, enough of that. I'm going to back off. But, in my case, all of my mountain bike crashes, and I probably had more injuries from mountain biking than any other sport, I would say. I mean, I've been hurt doing other things, but I was really addicted to being clipped in because I like that extra boost that you get, right? It's like, throw those pedals in the trash. I no longer clip in. I use flats with little spikes on them and a good pair of shoes. And I never, even if I crash, I don't crash, if you know what I mean. Usually you can get a foot down. Usually you can get something to save yourself. And if you do tip over, by that point, you've already slowed down to the point where you're really not getting hurt. So I think this idea of giving up on stuff, it's more really about adapting, right? It's more about how do you wear the right safety gear? How do you set yourself up for success, minimize the risk, and yet optimize your ability to get into that flow state that I know you probably love as much as I do, right? So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, you're right on. The only time I've been injured on bike, either mountain or road, has been because I couldn't get out of my clips. And most of the time I was actually stationary. And so I have given up clips, no question. I've got good pedals, flat pedals, and good shoes. That's never again.
That's it. Never again. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, I'll have to tell you about the time I fell into a cactus. That was pretty interesting.
A porcupine.
And then had to ride about 12 miles to get out.
I hear you.
Yeah. So anyway, I was picking tines out of my leg for about 3 weeks. So anyway, well, great. Well, it's good to have you here. So I love the fact that you were born in 46. I love the fact that you're active, that you're adapting, that you're staying youthful, really, because this is we're really all about making 100 the new 30. And it's really all about, living young for a lifetime. And I think this mindset that you have is beautifully reflective of all of that. So tell us a little bit about how you got into this nutritional space. Your life wasn't always perfect, as I understand it, growing up. You had a few challenges there, health challenges, perhaps?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I would be what you would call a sickly child, because I had every childhood disease that you can possibly get, I believe. growing up, and looking backward, I would say I was raised on antibiotics, which I'm convinced significantly affected my immune system, to the point that I almost facetiously, but meant it, if somebody drove by with their window down, they had a cold, I caught it. I was just so immune compromised that it just seemed like I could never, go for any extended period of time without dealing with some kind of illness, disease, etc. And so, I had pneumonia as a child. I had it later on. I had hepatitis. I had prostate infection and then hepatitis as a teenager. I had it again, a second round of both those. I had mononucleosis twice, once in college, once later. In my early 40s, I ended up with chronic fatigue syndrome. And, having described my lifestyle that I love athletics, I'm a type A personality, having chronic fatigue syndrome was like a sentence worse than death. I literally couldn't go on a walk with my wife. We have a condo in the southern part of the state, and went down there. I'd have to put a bed in the back of the Suburban. She drove, and I just had to lay. So that was kind of the catalyst that said, I can't live like this. I've got to do something. I've got to find a solution. I happen to live in an area that would be considered the capital of network marketing. And so everybody had a solution, and I was willing to try anything. I was drinking stuff that was hard to even look at, let alone take.
No, right? No.
And I go to the doctor. They would recommend antidepressants. I say, I'm not depressed. I'm discouraged, but anyway, long story short, nothing worked. Anything I tried. Then a friend of mine who was a professor at the local university told me about a symposium that was put on in Park City, Utah, and it was put on by a number of universities across the countries. The symposium is entitled Foods as a Medicine. I went there. Okay. They introduced this symposium saying that there'd been more research done in the last 5 years than the prior 200 years, linking every known illness, every known disease, cancers, etc., to some form of something related to diet. Dietary.
Too much of one thing, not enough of something else.
Right. Either taking the wrong stuff in your body or not getting the right stuff. And anyway, the presentations were exceptional. They're well documented, well researched. It was kind of an aha moment for me of, kind of that adage, let food be your medicine and medicine be your food, resonated at that point with me. I remember there was a particular presenter from Champaign, Illinois, PhD lady, extremely well documented presentation of all the phytonutrients, the polyphenols, the vitamins, the minerals in foods, what they do to prevent disease, what cures disease, etc. And after her presentation, I raised my hand and I said, I really buy into everything you're saying. I have one problem. I'm born and raised on a farm. I said, I'm very familiar with modern day farming techniques. My concern is, depending on where it's grown and the nutrient density of the soils, and how long it's been in transport, whether you cook it or not, whether you're spraying it with pesticides, herbicides, fungicides. I said, how do you know? I said, isn't there a wide variance of nutrient value depending on all those factors? She said, absolutely. Right. I said, so how do you know you're getting all those nutrients you say either prevent or cure disease? I said, wouldn't it make sense if you could get it in a concentrated form? You could test it to know it had all these vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, etc. Anyway, this was basically to a college of dietitians. She said, well, I'm just a firm believer in whole food nutrition. I walked down after the presentation. I kind of rephrased the question. She said, sure, if you could get it, you could test it, and all you're missing is basically the water or the sugar, but you got all the nutrients. So that is what was the catalyst that put me on a quest. I said, that's what I got to do. Because I said, there's two problems. One, I'm very familiar with, potentially the nutrition deficiency today in our foods compared to years ago.
Yeah.
But then becomes a guessing game when you go in. Well, where was this carrot grown? How long has it been in transport? I can tell you this, and I've done enough research, and this is, USDA data. You harvest spinach. I live in a cold climate. If I buy spinach, I can tell you it's either come from Mexico or Chile. Sometimes it'll come from California. But the average fruit and vegetable in the United States has traveled 1,600 miles before, it hits your plate.
Mm-hmm.
If you harvest spinach within 24 hours, I don't care if you refrigerate it, what you do with it, you'll lose 90% of the vitamin C content. Within 5 days, you'll lose approximately 50% of those other nutrients. So what foods are we eating that have, produce, etc., that hasn't been at length, let alone whether the nutrients were there in the first place? So that is say what I said, I'm dealing with this chronic fatigue. What happened is I ended up finding a lady who had developed for a company. She was a registered dietitian, had her master's degree in clinical nutrition, had developed a whole food concentrate supplement that I got on. And literally within less than a month, I got out of my chronic fatigue, which I'd had for 9 months. So, and then I did blood tests down there and I did all this stuff. I became such a believer. I said, if this can work.
Let me ask you this. Let me interrupt you for a second. So before you started on the supplement, and we're big fans of nutrient density. People ask me all the time, kind of what diet do you espouse really? Paleo this or a vegan that or whatever. It's really what it boils down to is a nutritarian diet, right? Where you're really going for foods that have the highest nutrient density you can get a hold of, quite honestly, because that's really, I think, where health comes from. And you can really tell when you eat those foods. All that being said, it is interesting to try to test an individual. And I'm just curious, this is the question to you, whether or not you were able to test and see things that you were deficient in prior to starting this nutrient dense food supplement.
No, I really didn't do any extensive testing as far as what I was deficient in, but I know I was deficient. I was trying to eat well, but I'm now 100% convinced no matter how hard you try to eat well, it's almost impossible today to get all the nutrients you need out of the food if you're buying it commercially, whatever.
That's right.
It's just not there.
Yeah, it's not there. Yeah, it's not there for all the reasons you mentioned. And I mean, really about the only way to do it is to grow it yourself.
Absolutely.
So actually what we've started doing is growing our own herbs, which is really nice. So we're sprouting different things. We're growing our own basil. We're doing some stuff like that. But it's so fascinating when you taste it. And what's really interesting is when your body feels it hit, right? Yep. So like you eat these freshly, you just harvested these sprouts and then, 2 hours later you're eating them. I mean, it's kind of like night and day between anything else. I mean, your body just feels so good. It's like it's just getting something it wants, right? So we're all calorie rich and nutrient depleted in our diets, right? And when you have a nutrient rich diet, all of a sudden you need fewer calories because you just feel so much better. You're so much more satiated. Plus, you're much healthier. So I think this is one of the biggest conundrums that we live with is that we have industrial farming, we have industrial food, we have industrial shopping. And I agree with you. I think it's almost impossible to actually really eat a nutrient dense diet, even if you're unless you spend all day long really 100% committed to it. It's almost tough to source this stuff. And even then, I think it might not be possible. So it sounds like, realizing that, one of the things that we've toyed with is the idea of actually growing nutrient dense foods, kind of locally scattered around the country where people could get them within a matter of, a couple of days or something like that. Maybe they would order it ahead of time to be harvested and sent to them. we have some techniques that we're involved with with some other people that can enhance the nutrient density of food dramatically, which is kind of interesting. So that's one approach, but it has a lot of logistics that are kind of inherent to it, right? It sounds like you've taken a different approach, which I think has a very practical value. Tell us a little bit about the technology. How is it that you're eating a nutrient dense diet now? Because I'm thinking that whatever you did to cure yourself, you kept doing it.
Absolutely. So, as I mentioned, I met this lady, this registered dietitian, who had formulated this for a company. Long story short, the company, the owner of the company, got in some legal problems. Everybody quit. They knew I was passionate about this. They reached out to me, said, you need to pick up the pieces, so to speak, and carry this on. And so I basically got the lady, this registered dietitian. I said, okay, can this be improved upon? She said, absolutely. I said, throw away the checkbook. This is not about margin. This is not about a business. This is about my health, your health, the family. I did not start this as a business. It was strictly trying to address what. So anyway, it became, she'd been with me, for 18 years or more, however long it's been. I was it's maybe actually longer than that, because I was in my mid 40s when I had this, and I'm now 77. So, but anyway, that really became a process of evolution of even finding this technology that we could take any food, any fruit, any vegetable, reduce it to a powder form with zero loss of any nutrients, color, or flavor. And it would actually lock it in. I did accelerated shelf life studies showing that after 16 and a half years on an accelerated shelf life, still zero loss of any nutrients, color, flavor. I thought freeze drying was the gold standard and whatnot, but they use and freeze dried, because I followed it from start to finish. It still takes that last part of it. They crank up the heat, extremely high to get that moisture content down. And that kills the enzyme. It changes the molecular structure of it. Whereas this technology doesn't use heat. It's infrared light, just off visible light, that targets the water molecule. And so I invested in this technology, and basically has been the core, the foundation of what I do. And so with her help, we developed what I call Complete Essentials. And it literally has 100+ ingredients: organic fruits and vegetables, non-GMO fruits and vegetables, grains, and spices.
Let me just interrupt you. So I get the concept here, and it's a beautiful concept, but you're back to kind of the same question we were asking before, which is, where do you get the nutrient dense foods to be able to use your technology on? How are you?
Okay, and that's a great question, because I knew that. So every single fruit, vegetable we vet out. I'll give you an example. I literally contracted with a 5th generation organic farmer out of Willamette Valley, Oregon, to grow the kale. Okay. And this technology we had in the Dalles, Oregon. So when that was harvested, that kale the same day was in our facility, drying facility, and in powder form the same day. And we took that kale and we tested that against off-the-shelf kale, organic kale, just to see what the nutrient density comparison was. There was as much as 8 times the nutritional value in the powdered kale than buying it from off the shelf. Where that was grown, how long it had been in transport, etc., what conditions was grown in. Just the fact it was organic was a plus, but it still didn't cut the mustard. So that's what we do. And so when we take all these ingredients that we vet out, where it's grown and etc., and we control the processing of it, we submit it all to a third-party lab to test, to to validate the nutritional integrity of the vitamin content, the mineral content, the antioxidants. I
get the integrity of the process, but are you intimating that you're able to take food from, we'll say, from the field to the powder within 24 hours for all the different things that go into this? Or
no,
Okay.
no. But I'm just saying, foundationally, that's what we do. But what I do, even if it isn't, we vet out the sourcing of it. But what we do is, when I take whatever it is that I'm looking for, let's say it's broccoli sprouts,
Mm-hmm.
and I use broccoli sprouts, what I test for is sulforaphane. So I can then tell you that I have the amount of broccoli that you would have to eat to get, literally a pound of broccoli to get as much sulforaphane as I have in this product per serving.
Mm-hmm.
So the equivalent of a
Nice.
pound of broccoli is going to give you this. And sulforaphane is the anti-cancer compound. It's one of the key nutrient factors in broccoli or kale, etc. So,
just so the audience understands, sulforaphane is almost like God's gift to your DNA. As we got into this whole field over a decade ago, we started to learn about sulforaphane, and it's interesting how it modulates DNA expression. So it upregulates many genes that you want to have upregulated with regards to managing oxidative stress and, the whole cascade of superoxide dismutase, glutathione peroxidase, catalase. Those enzymes are all upregulated by sulforaphane. It also, really helps with detox. And so it'll upregulate detox enzymes, and it helps with hormone metabolites. And it's one of these things that if you had to pick your top 5 nutrients, it'd probably make the top 5, quite honestly, because it's just so categorically good for health and DNA expression and modulation. So just to let you know.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That's refreshing to have somebody that knows what I'm talking about and beyond what I have. Yeah, but that's it. I mean, so we're literally saying there's a pound of broccoli in every serving because of the amount of sulforaphane in every serving of this complete essential. So it has 8 detoxifying greens, organics, wheatgrass, barley grass, spirulina, etc. And it's
nice.
And then it has 15 strains of probiotics. It has all the plant digestive enzymes. It was designed, as I said, to give your body all the nutrients it needs. You still need to eat. You still need your calories, your carbohydrates, the fats, protein, etc.
Yeah.
But you're not getting those
fiber.
Those vital
fiber,
nutrients
right?
out of the food. So,
right. And you're going to need to add fiber to this, it sounds like, because there's not going to be much fiber in here, I don't think, right?
Not a lot, but there is some fiber there.
A little bit of fiber.
Yeah.
Okay.
See if I even have on the nutritional panel the amount of fiber. I don't. So, but yeah.
Okay. So how do people drink this or take it? Whether they put it in a smoothie, or what's it taste like?
Honestly, it tastes great. And if you wanted to, it doesn't look that appetizing because it's green and it doesn't, a lot of sediment floats out. But I personally take it in a smoothie every morning. I take it with organic berries and half a banana and water, and put a protein powder that I produce in there, a plant-based protein powder, and that's my breakfast every single morning. And I've been doing this for 25, 30 years. And so but
do you have any history? Do you have any? And you may not even have a feel for this exactly, but does it have components in it that some people are sensitive to? Like, some people are running around with lots of food sensitivities, and they can't tolerate this or that or whatever. Is there any element of that that you're aware of?
Not that I'm aware of. If somebody is allergic to fruit or vegetables or something like that, but The other thing is we have a really potent blend of digestive enzymes along with probiotics that if you have certain food sensitives, like you're gluten sensitive or you have a hard time breaking down dairy proteins, that's already in there to do that. So it really, provides basically inherent in the product the ability to break it down, absorb it, utilize it, etc.
So as you look at this product, is it the kind of thing that you're continuing to tweak over time? It's like, well, we've got these 100+ things in here, but as new literature is coming out, we see that it would be great if we added 3 or 4 more, or this or that. Is it that kind of thing, or how do you handle innovation with regards to a product like this or a product line like yours?
Yes, the answer is yes. If there is new studies, new revelations about certain phytonutrients, certain foods or exotic things that add to it, and we do the research on it, we will integrate it. It would not be very much of a wholesale change. It would just be, something that if it makes sense, we will do it. My whole thing, as I said, the mandate still is the core driving force behind what I do. It's not about margin. It's a mission. If margin is your mission, you'll compromise. And,
yeah, totally.
And so when I told her day one, throw away the checkbook, and I'll be the first to acknowledge, from a perception standpoint, it might seem like it's expensive, but probably every ingredient in there in its class is the most expensive because of where it's grown and how it's processed and the nutritional integrity of it. But if you were to compare it, and I've done this, I've gone to, my own research go to the grocery store to see if I could buy all the organic, non-GMO fruits and vegetables that I have in there. This is a few years ago, it cost $18 to do that. That was per day.
Okay.
Then when I was talking about the amino acid chelated minerals, the probiotics, the digestive enzymes, the essential fatty acids, the botanicals, all the things I have in there, and tried to replicate it. I went to a well-known nutritional store. I was well over $250 just in those. So
per day.
So I'm just saying if you really look at it, we're talking something that might cost close to $3 a day to give your body the insurance policy that you are getting everything that it needs to function the way it was. You mentioned something, and I was thinking about this, that in terms of how people feel, most of us, I believe, are operating on 4 cylinders, not knowing we were created with 8-cylinder body, and it's because we're giving ourselves 4-cylinder fuel, and they don't even realize it until, as you were alluding to, once you start nourishing your body on a cellular level, it's like a wake-up call. Like, oh, all of a sudden, I have energy, I have stamina, I can move and do things that on a level that I didn't know I was capable of, even at my age. I'll challenge a 20-year-old to ride up a mountain and see who wins.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's the beauty of it right there.
This episode of the Gladden Longevity Podcast is brought to you by H2 Molecular Hydrogen in the Gladden Longevity Store.
Yeah, Steve, you've heard us talk about this numerous times on the podcast in terms of the benefits of H2 and hydrogen water. We love it. It's really the best way to balance your entire redox system. So it really protects you from free radical damage. I take it every time I get on a flight to protect me from radiation damage when I'm flying. And I use it to rejuvenate my brain in the afternoon. There's really 2 kinds of exercise. There's physical exercise, and taking H2 before or after that works great. But also there's mental exercise. And I find that the H2 will bring your brain back when you're tired in the afternoon. So I think it's like the perfect thing for longevity and for performance, quite honestly.
And I talked to you about this, that I found dropping 1 or 2 tablets in a glass of water right before bed. I've seen an overall bump in my deep sleep when I do so. And
fascinating. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you click on the store tab when you visit GladdenLongevityShop.com and use the promo code podcast10, you'll get 10% off your order. And this code isn't only good for our H2 product, but it's also good for all the supplements we carry. So podcast10 at the GladdenLongevityShop.com.
Yeah, one of the other things that I use it for routinely is when I'm about to go on a mountain bike ride. And I will say this, that if I go on a long mountain bike ride, I will take one prior, I'll take one during, and I'll take one after. And some of the Ironmen that we've worked with have said that when they're doing an Ironman, they'll take it 3 or 4 times throughout the race. And their comment is that it's like taking out the old battery and putting in a new one. It really rejuvenates your body's ability to perform when you're doing more extended athletic activity. So think about that too. If you want to go do a longer hike or whatever else, take it with you.
So GladdenLongevityShop.com, enter podcast 10 for 10% off your order.
H2 molecular hydrogen. It's low-hanging fruit on your quest to make 100 the new 30. It sounds like to me that what we're really doing is redefining fine dining.
That's it.
Right. And instead of spending $300 on a meal that, people spend to go fine dining, right? And then another $300 on a bottle of wine, you're getting really, truly fine dining here for, whatever it is, $3 a day or something, right? So, and that's cheaper than a Big Mac or I guess maybe a cheeseburger. I don't know what they charge, but it falls into the bargain category. So that's a really exciting story. I'm so pleased that you're doing this. This is really cool. You must have a real network of, and I think what's nice about this is it has a shelf life, right? So if somebody buys it and they're going through it and it lasts a month or 2 months or whatever like that, they don't have to feel like there's degradation in the integrity of the nutritional value of the product is kind of what I'm hearing. Is that right?
You're absolutely right. Like I said, we've done shelf life testing, and the interesting thing is this technology creates a flat, solid particulate until it's exposed to water or extremely high heat. It does not degrade, whereas a freeze-dried particle is porous, and over time you will degrade that. But I mean, we legally have to put a limited shelf life on there. But I've taken this well after the quote Best Buy time, and I've tested it, and the only thing that will really degrade over time in a shorter period of time, in a couple of years, is your probiotics and digestive enzymes. The other
nutrients themselves are pretty stable.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about, I'm here in Puerto Rico. We had friends over yesterday. It was the 4th of July, and they were talking about being here during the hurricane when Maria came through and just shut down the entire island. And they were talking about gas and water and electricity and food, and how, in light of their experience, how they prepare for that and kind of going forward, right? And I'm kind of thinking it would be great to have a bunch of bags of this on the shelf, because you'd be able to actually get nutrient-dense food, not only during your regular life, but certainly if you ever got stuck someplace, or if you're going camping, or if you're going to be doing something like that where, you can't carry 80 pounds of nutrient-dense food up the mountain, right? But you get a scoop, 6 scoops for the next however many days or whatever. So, and I suppose that, does anybody play around with, taking fine dining to another level where they eat or drink this a couple times a day or something like that, 3 times a day? Is there any history of people doing that?
The only times that I feel it's recommended is when you are dealing with a significant health issue, that your body is demanding more nutrients. If I were starting to come with something that was compromising my body, I would probably take it twice a day, morning and late afternoon. Sometimes if you take it too late, you get a little energy boost and it's hard to get to sleep. So
Gotcha. Nice.
And that's probably the number one thing I get feedback on is people feel energy. I mean, there's a lot of different benefits that we get over the years, and a lot of times the number one feedback is people who have been taking it and for whatever reason stop. Then they realize just exactly what it was doing to them, and they didn't realize how much effect that was having on them.
Yeah. Well, as human beings, we tend to normalize what is, right? So if we start feeling good, we notice that for the first week or so, and then it's like, it's a new normal, and now you don't even notice it. So I guess it stopped working, right? It's kind of what people say. I guess it stopped working until they stop it, and then they realize.
Then you go back to the old normal.
They go back to the old normal, but they don't want to normalize that. So we're funny creatures that way. We have a hard time keeping track of that improvement, so to speak. Yeah. So what else? What else are you doing? I know this is your kind of flagship product, but you've got other things that you're involved with also. You mentioned a protein powder and some other stuff. What else are you cooking over there?
Yeah. Well, basically everything I produce, I take, and I did it primarily because I've been in the health and wellness space now for 40 plus years. I'm a constant researcher. When I bring something out, it's because I want it. And if I want, and I feel like what I'm doing, if it benefits me, it benefits everybody. But I'm very much into more of a plant-based diet, and so created a plant-based protein that has a combination of an organic brown rice protein blended with a non-GMO pea protein in the right ratio that gives what's called the PCDAA score of 1, which is the optimal amount you can get in terms of the profile of your amino acids.
Essential amino acids, yeah.
And so, and then I have a patented ingredient, a plant-based ingredient that has great research to show that it doubles the muscle synthesis of that protein. So if you're taking 10 grams or 11 grams of protein, you're getting the same benefit as if you were taking 22 grams without this product.
Okay.
And so that's one.
Is that anything you want to mention on the show, or something you're going to keep in a proprietary corner of the office there?
No, it's just my plant-based protein. I don't even know what I call it.
No. I mean your agent that increases protein synthesis from the protein that's there.
Oh, what it is? It's called. Yeah. It's actually called Velocitol.
Okay, nice.
But it has reams of research on it. In terms of what it does for muscle synthesis of protein.
Beautiful. And I'm not familiar with Velocitol. Is that a trade name or is that the actual molecule?
It's the trade name.
Okay. Got it. So that makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. I need to look that up.
I can send you a lot of the research on it.
Yeah, we'd love to see it. We'd love to see it.
I think I should have your email address, so I'll forward you anything you want on that.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah. All right. That sounds great. So, are there other products that you're interested to bring out here?
So one of the things that is probably, something that's very exciting that I recently came out with just this year, I'm a firm believer in digestive enzymes. I mean, 90% of the food we eat today is either cooked or processed or whatever. And anytime you heat any food to 118 degrees, you kill the enzymes in food. All raw foods in any form, meat, vegetables, fruits, grains, you name it, all have enzymes that were designed to break that down in your body, and so your body could absorb it and utilize it. And the human body was born with a kind of a finite amount or capability of producing enzymes, metabolic enzymes. And so when we are forcing our body to utilize that capacity we have of enzymes to break down the food rather than because we're cooking it or it's not in the foods. That's why when we get older, we're finding more and more digestive issues, whether it be, acid reflux, irritable bowel syndrome, you name it. Just it's a common, and it's getting more common because the foods are devoid of it, and our body is depleted of its ability to produce the enzymes to cover all the bases. Everything in the body is dependent, from blinking to thinking, is dependent on enzymes. So recently we came out with an enzyme blend called sugar to fiber. And it has all the enzymes in there that break down the proteins, the fats, the carbohydrates, the hard to break down proteins like gluten and dairy proteins. But it has a patent pending enzyme that actually converts 50 to 90% of the sugar in a disaccharide form into fiber in the gut.
Really?
Yes.
Wow, that's reverse digestion right there.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it is. So what does that do? Well, one of the biggest challenges we're dealing with, especially in the United States, is the consumption of sugar. We consume 5 times the amount of sugar that our body can utilize. And so it causes the body to release insulin that's trying to figure out what to do with all that excess. That it only can get rid of, can store so much in the muscle or in the liver, and so the rest is stored in fats. But it is the underlying cause for a healthy majority of the health issues we're dealing with today. Is that out of control glucose spikes, up and downs. And so what this does, this enzyme flattens that curve. It basically minimizes those spikes and up and down.
Nice.
And of course, there's the side benefit is if you're converting 50 to 90% of that sugar into fiber, whether it comes from starches or whether it comes from table sugar, then, it's going to certainly help on weight maintenance. And then if it's converting into fiber in the gut, that also contributes to the satiety and, healthy microbiome. So it's just an exceptional.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It's a revolutionary product that actually we're the first on the market with it. Harvard was contracted by Kraft Heinz Food, and they are working on an enzyme that converts sugar to fiber. Their original mandate was to try and find a sugar substitute to get rid of all the added sugar in their foods, and they came up with this enzyme. So all this study does is validate what we've got. And they. But
now, is that something you'll put in your complete essentials, or is that going to be a standalone kind of product?
It's a standalone product right now. It's something that, anytime you're eating, we suggest you take it an hour to an hour and a half before you eat. It seems like
before you eat,
it has the best effect of minimizing that spike if you're kind of preloading with it. And, it's an anti-inflammatory. You will feel even, a little energy boost, etc. as it, but it's
nice. So the next time you go to a birthday party, you can basically drop this in.
That's it. Yeah. You can say, I just need a little more fiber in my diet. So
that's right. Beautiful. Well, this is fascinating. Frank, it's been really a pleasure to chat with you about all this. Steve, does anything come to mind as you heard all this?
No, I'm definitely interested in checking it out, learning more about it, and
yeah. I don't know if our, my executive assistant who sets these up and working with yours, I normally when I'm doing something like this, if somebody is interested, we give you a code. It can be Gladden 15, and they go on and
beautiful. Yeah.
And can get that.
Yeah, we'd love to would love to pass that on to our audience, and then we'd love to try it ourselves.
Yep.
So that'd be great.
Well, does that sound good? Should we do Gladden 15? It'll give an automatic. Ask for a code, and it'll give them that discount. It'll be set up today.
Yeah, that'd be perfect.
And then the website is optividahealth.com. That's OPTIVIDA health.com. And Gladden 15 is that promo code.
Yeah, good. Optivida. How'd you come up with Optivida?
Well,
optimal life.
That's exactly basically what it is. Optimal life.
Okay. Yeah. Right. Okay. Good.
It's hard to come up with names anymore, so but that's what I'm looking for is optimal life.
Yeah.
Optimal health.
So you had to revert to your Latin.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Nice.